The door to the Walmart in Fort Worth, Texas, has one of those automatic locks that shut off at 11 p.m. I know because I was sitting out there on that concrete bench between the Panda Express and the broken arcade machine when I heard the metallic click that meant go home. Old lady, the problem is I didn't have a home anymore. And the only thing I had with me, besides my crocheted bag with $47 in coins and a wool sweater I'd knitted myself when I still had strength in my fingers, was Rex. Rex, the golden retriever my son David bought for my safety when he and my daughter-in-law, Sarah, decided I was getting too lonely in that one-bedroom apartment I'd lived in for 30 years. The apartment I paid for with my husband's life insurance. The apartment that, last month, David and Sarah convinced me to put in their names to avoid inheritance taxes. The apartment, when I returned from my doctor's appointment on Tuesday, had new locks and a note taped to the door. Mom, the note read, in that digitized handwriting Sarah used, so she wouldn't have to write by hand. We need some time. You've been very difficult lately. Rex loves you. He will take care of you. The note had no address, no phone number. Nothing but cruelty written with the calm of someone who thinks money solves everything. The money I had given them. The money I had saved over 20 years working as a seamstress after my husband died. The money I had put into a joint account for emergencies. Their emergency, apparently, was me. Rex, I said to the dog sitting beside me, his tail slowly twitching on the cold concrete. I think we've been abandoned. He looked at me with those brown eyes that always reminded me of my husband. Walter had eyes like that. Eyes that had witnessed World War II, that had seen me give birth to 3 children, that had seen our only surviving son, David, become the man who sells his mother for an apartment in a better neighborhood. Don't worry, I continued, stroking Resoft. I've been in the Amazon, in the middle of a dictatorship, with 3 children and a dog much worse than you. We're not going to die here. The truth is, I wasn't sure. My 78 years weighed more than my 170 kilos. My knees were so bad I needed to lean on the wall to get up. And the diabetes diagnosis I'd received last month was still hammering in my head like a warning that my time was short. But they didn't know one thing. They didn't know that I had memorized every penny I'd given them. Every signature I'd put on documents I didn't understand. Every lie they'd told with those son and daughter-in-law smiles that I'd believed. They also didn't know about the chip. The day David brought Rex home, 3 years ago, he told me the dog had been microchipped. It's the law, Mom. All dogs need it. But what he didn't know was that I had taken Rex to my own veterinarian the next day, Dr. Chun, a young Chinese man who treated me like I was the Queen of England, had scanned the chip and shown me the data. The chip wasn't registered in David's name. It was registered in the name of Margaret H. Walters Trust, my late husband's name. The trust I had created in 1995, when Walter had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, to protect our assets from, well, exactly that, from ungrateful children. The trust had a clause I had forgotten until that moment, when I felt the cold concrete creeping up my back in case of abandonment or bad faith on the part of the beneficiaries. The asset of greatest emotional value will be transferred to the bearer, provided it is accompanied by the designated animal. I had written this with the help of a lawyer after seeing a movie about an elderly woman who had been abandoned by her children. It seemed absurd at the time. Today, it seemed prophetic. Rex, I whispered, as a Mexican family walked by with 3 children, who looked at the dog longingly. You're my lawyer now. At 11:30 a.m., a security guard came out of Walmart. Young, Latino, with a face that said he'd seen this before. Lucidate Rex, and made express recognized as the expression of someone who doesn't know if they're seeing a lost grandma or a problem for the incident report. Ma'am, we're closing. Do you need help? I need an Uber, I said, surprised by the firmness of my own voice. An Uber XL, for me and my lawyer. He looked at Rex. Lawyer. He's a lawyer. He just doesn't have a diploma because he's a dog. But he has a microchip. The security guard laughed. Premier did not. He stopped laughing. He pulled out his cell phone. Where to? I thought, where to a 78-year-old woman? What happens when her own son leaves her at a Walmart? When she no longer has a home, no longer has family, and has only a dog and $47. Let's go to the bank, I said. Chase Manhattan. Hullen Street branch. Do you have an account there? I do. I lied. But you have nothing if you don't have hope. And I had a plan. A plan that began to take shape in my head as I felt Rex's weight against my leg and the cold concrete against my butt. The plan involved a lawyer I had known 30 years ago. A man who owed me a favor because I had sewn his wedding suit when he didn't have money to pay a tailor. A man who now had a plaque with his name on a glass building in downtown Fort Worth. A man named Robert Pierce. As we waited for the Uber, which the security guard kind of paid for. Because he still had a grandmother in Laredo, I thought about all the things David and Sarah didn't know I knew. They didn't know I had copies of all the bank transfers. They didn't know I'd taken pictures of every document they made me sign with my trembling hand. They didn't know I had a folder hidden behind the box of Ferrero Rocher they never ate because they thought cheap chocolate was low standard, with all the receipts. All the evidence, everything. They also didn't know I had life insurance, a big one. $500,000, with an accidental abandonment benefit clause that I'd added after reading an article on our P about how children were abandoning elderly parents. The lawyer, at the time, had thought it was strange. I'd insisted. Rex, I said as the Uber XL, a silver Honda CR-V, pulled out from Walmart. We're going to the bank, then to the hotel, then to court. He barked. Once. Short. Decisive. As if to say, I'm ready. The driver was a young Nigerian man named Aid. He looked at Rex, looked at me, and said nothing about the dog. He just asked, where to? My queen. I gave him the bank's address. And as he drove through the empty streets of Fort Worth at midnight, I began knitting in the air. Knit yarn. With plans, with justice, with vengeance that had waited 45 years to be born. In my crocheted bag, which I had handmade in 1989, when my fingers still obeyed, I had a pen, a notepad, and the key to my marriage. The golden key that Walter had given me in 1960, with a tie, for my Maggie, the only thing that locks my life. I had used that key to unlock his arm during 45 years of marriage. Now I was going to use it to lock my son and daughter-in-law in a prison without bars. Madam, Aid said, glancing in the rearview mirror. If you don't mind me asking, why is an elegant lady like yourself with such a large dog so late at night? Because, I replied, running my hand through Rex's golden fur. He's the only man in my life who has never abandoned me. And now, he's going to help me get back everything that was stolen from me. Aid smiled. A smile that understood. Maybe because he, too, was the son of a grandmother who had been abandoned. Or maybe because, in Texas, there were still men who respected a woman with a plan and a dog. Where are we going after the bank? to the Omni Hotel. They have pet-friendly rooms. They also had something else. Something I had discovered when Walter and I had gone there for our 40th anniversary. They had a safe. And the night manager was a man named Steve, who had lost his mother to Alzheimer's and had promised me that if I ever needed a safe place, he had a room that didn't exist in the system. In the Uber trunk, hidden in my crocheted bag, was a letter. A letter I had handwritten in 1995, when Walter had begun to lose his memory. A letter I had given to a lawyer in Dallas with instructions to only open it in case of proven abandonment. A letter that said exactly what I wanted to happen to everything that was mine. The letter began, "To my beloved son David and my daughter-in-law Sarah, if you are reading this, it is because you did exactly what I feared you would do. And now, you will pay for it, not with money, with memory, with history, with the weight of knowing that the mother you abandoned was stronger than all your combined plans." They didn't know that I knew they had read that letter, that they had found it when they broke into my apartment looking for documents, that they had laughed at it, that they had called it old lady paranoia, that they had put it aside. They didn't know that the letter was only the first page, that there was a second page, one that explained where the money was. Walter's money, the life insurance money. The money that wasn't $500,000, it was $2 million. And it wasn't in any bank. It was in a place only a woman who had stitched every inch of her life together knew. I knew where to look. "Rex," I whispered as the Chase Manhattan Bank appeared on the horizon, lit up like a glass castle. "We're going to the bank. Then we're going to the hotel. Then we're going home. Then we're going to peace." He barked, once, short, decisive, as if to say, "I'm with you until the end of the world." And the end of the world, I knew, was only the beginning of my revenge. A revenge that wouldn't be violent, it wouldn't be noisy. It would be silent, like a needle stitching a hole. Like a mother who keeps all the pain and waits for the right moment to show that every stitch she made was a warning. When the Uber stopped in front of the bank, I didn't try to open the door. Aid did it for me. And when he offered me his arm to help me down, I didn't refuse, because I knew that accepting help wasn't weakness. It was strategy. And my strategy had only just begun. In drawer number 714, in the Chase Manhattan safe deposit box, there was a metal box. Inside the box, there was a key. Inside the key, there was a code. And inside the code, there was the truth that David and Sarah thought they had buried. But they didn't know that I was the woman who had buried her husband, who had buried dreams, who had buried any hope that my son would be different from his father. When you bury so much, you learn where the things you bury are. And I was about to dig it all up. "Rex," I said to the dog, who looked at me with eyes that understood every word, "it's time to dig." He barked. "On this team, it was the bride for war." The drawer of safe number 714 slid open with a metallic hiss that sounded like a door from the past opening to the future. Inside, exactly as I remembered, because I had come here for the first time with Walter in 1995. When he still recognized my face, was a black metal box, the size of a Bible, with a combination lock that gleamed under the dim light of the bank vault. "Madam, do you need privacy?" The vault manager, a young man named Stephen, who couldn't have been more than 25 and was still wearing a bow tie, was looking at Rex with an expression I knew well. It was the expression of someone who sees a potential problem but is still afraid of being called prejudiced if they say anything. "Stephen," I said, reading his name on the gold plaque that looked like it had been put there yesterday. This is Rex. He's my lawyer. And lawyers have the right to accompany their clients to bank meetings. Stephen gave a nervous chuckle. Lawyer. He's a dog, ma'am. Yes. I placed the metal box on the table in the middle of the vault room. And dogs are more loyal than relatives. Which, at this moment, makes him more qualified than my son to take care of my business. Stephen shut his mouth. Good. I always liked young people who knew when to shut up. Love. The Uber driver, who was still waiting outside because I had paid him to wait, had told me something on the way to the bank that had made me think. He had said, my grandmother used to say that when you have nothing to lose. And when you have nothing to lose, you can do anything. He was right. I had nothing and everything to gain. Ma'am, Stephen whispered, clearly wanting to be anywhere but there. I can close the door so you have privacy. No. I started turning the combination wheel on the box's padlock. July 14th, 78. Walter and I were on our wedding anniversary. The day he promised me he would never leave me. He had broken that promise when illness took him. David had broken something worse, the promise that sons take care of their mothers. Stephen, do you have a dog? I asked, as the padlock opened with a click that echoed in the concrete room. I do, a golden retriever, too. Named Max, so you understand. I looked at him, for the first time really looking at him. His eyes were young, but tired. He had seen things he shouldn't have seen at 25. You understand that a dog doesn't abandon you, doesn't sell you, doesn't put you in a Walmart and disappear. He swallowed hard. Ma'am, about Walmart. I heard Mr. Aide talking to the security guard. I can call the police. We can file a police report, double quotes no. I opened the box. Inside, there was a brown silk envelope, the kind that doesn't exist anymore. The paper was so thin it looked like it would disintegrate at the touch. The police are for crimes. What my son did isn't a crime. It's worse. It's family betrayal. And family betrayal has a different kind of punishment. In the envelope, there were 3 things: an old brass key, a handwritten letter from Walter in 1975, and a document from Dr. Chun, Rex's veterinarian, dated 3 days ago. Walter's letter was short. He was never one for many words. The words were, Maggie, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. Don't cry for me. Cry for those who think they can touch you. Cry for them because they don't know that the woman I married was a lioness who learned to sew. And lionesses who know how to sew can sew anything, including traps. I folded the letter carefully. I put it in the inside pocket of my wool sweater. That was the pocket where I kept things that couldn't be stolen. Dr. Chun's document was more interesting. It was a report. A complete report on Rex, about his health, about his microchip, about his legal owner. And the name that was there, clear as day, was Margaret H. Walters Carter, trustee. Stephen, I said, seeing the young man's reflection in the steel mirror on the vault wall. Do you know what a trustee is? It's someone who manages a trust. Ma'am, exactly. I picked up the brass key. It was small, insignificant, but heavy. And do you know what happens when a trustee is threatened? He shook his head slowly. Nothing happens. Because the law protects the trustee. The law protects whoever has the power. And I turned to face him, have the power. The brass key was for a deposit. Safe, deposit box number 714B, a box I had rented the same week Walter had been diagnosed. A box I had paid for upfront for 50 years. Stephen, I'm going to need you to open box 7-1 for B for me. Ma'am, I can single quotes T, double quotes you can. I showed him Dr. Chun's document. Because this box is in the name of Margaret H. Walters Trust, and I am the sole survivor of that trust. And here, I showed him my ID, the old driver's license, that still had my 30-year-old photo on it. Years ago, it says I'm Margaret H. Walters Carter, so you can. And you will. He hesitated. I know he wanted to call the manager. I know he wanted to do the right thing. But I also know he looked at Rex and saw something in the dog's eyes that made him think twice. Maybe it's loyalty. Maybe it's protection. Maybe it's the simple fact that a dog that doesn't abandon you is more frightening than a man who threatens you. Wait here, he finally said, and left the vault room. I waited. Rex waited. The metal box waited. And while we waited, I began to knit in the air, not with thread, with memory. Huit plans. With every detail of every betrayal I had stored away like a seamstress keeps scraps. David had started 3 years ago. Small things. Money disappearing from my account. Credit card bills I didn't recognize. Once, he had borrowed $5,000 from my emergency fund to fix the car he had bought with my money, the car he had put in his name. Sarah had been more subtle. She had started taking care of my medical bills, organizing my payments, helping with my insurance. Each help had a price. Each price had been subtracted from my account and added to hers. But the final, the Lopen Rex, the dog with Mimon and Hannah in name. They had done it, thinking I would never find out, that I would never suspect. That a fat 78-year-old woman would be too grateful to question the gift of a dog that cost $2,500. They had underestimated the fat old woman. Stephen returned. With a key, not the brass key. An electronic key. He inserted it into box 7-1 for B, slid it, and opened it. Inside, there was another box, smaller, made of wood, locked with a combination lock that I recognized immediately. It was the lock Walter and I bought in Paris in 1962, the lock we put on the Lover's Bridge. The lock I broke when he died, because love that can't be opened isn't love, it's prison. Madam, double quote, Stephen was trembling. This is a lot. It is. I picked up the wooden box. It's all I have. And tomorrow, it will be all they don't have. In the wooden box, there was a single item, a ring. Not Walter's wedding ring, that one I had buried with him. It was a signet ring. With the Walters coat of arms. With the coat of arms that Walter told me was fake. That it was just to impress the clients. That it meant nothing, but Walter lied, because the ring was real. And the coat of arms was real. And the family he had left behind when he came to America fleeing war. Fleeing destruction, fleeing a name that weighed more than he could bear was real, and that family had money. L'off money. Money that Walter had sworn he would never touch, because it was stained with war blood. Money he had hidden in a Swiss bank account. Money he had passed to me, with the key and the code, the day he received his Alzheimer's diagnosis. When I no longer know who I am, he had said, holding my hand with a strength I didn't know he still had, you will know, and you yourself t'en protectues. From whatever comes, what came was our son, what came was greed. What came was betrayal. I put the ring on my finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had always been mine. Stephen, I said, closing the wooden box, do you have children? I do. A baby. 3 months old. Teach him to be loyal. Or one day, a woman like me will sit on his doorstep, with a dog, and a memory. And that won't be pretty. He nodded, quickly, like someone who understands he's seeing something he shouldn't be seeing. And now, ma'am. Now, I picked up the wooden box. We go to the hotel, then to justice, then to peace, and you, excuse me, the dog. Rex, I said, and for the first time I allowed a real smile to appear, is the lawyer. And lawyers never abandon their clients. As we drove to the Omni, I ran my hand over the wooden box. The ring was warm, or maybe it was my skin that was cold. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I had something David and Sarah would never have: purpose. They had planned to leave me with nothing. But they didn't know that nothing is the only thing that makes it impossible for someone to defend themselves. When you have nothing, you have everything to gain. And when you have everything to gain, you don't lose. In the back seat of the Uber, with Aid driving and Rex in the front, I started knitting, for real this time. I took a yarn from my sweater pocket, crochet hooks from the other pocket. And I started making something I had learned to do when I had nothing, a net. But this wasn't a fishing net, it was a catch net. To catch every lie, every betrayal, every moment they thought I was moo it was old, to fat, to confuse to notice. Each stitch in the net was a receipt. Each gap was a bank transfer. Each knot was a text message I had saved. Each string was proof. Until the moment the net was ready to be pulled. And when it was pulled, David and Sarah wouldn't be arrested. They wouldn't be humiliated. They would just be reminders. Reminders that mothers don't disappear. They transform. And sometimes, they transform into ghosts that come back to collect. Ma'am, Aid said, looking in the rearview mirror, we're arriving. Perfect. I finished the last row of the net. Call Mr. Robert Pierce. Tell him Margaret Carter is coming. And that she brings what he asked for 30 years ago. What did he ask for, ma'am? Justice. I squeezed the net between my hands. He asked for justice, and I will deliver it. In installments of 78 years of contained rage, the Omni appeared. Lights, elegance, a world that was never mine, but that I was going to use as my platform. One last favor, Aid, anything, my queen. Do you have a camera on your phone? I do. Perfect. Because you'll want to film this for your grandchildren. So they know that family isn't who abandons you. It's who waits for you when you come back. He took out his phone. I turned on the camera. And so, with Rex by my side, the wooden box in my lap, and a web of betrayals in my hands, I entered the hotel where I was going to begin to end the life that David and Sarah thought had ended mine. The Omni hotel smelled of a wealth I didn't recognize. It wasn't the smell of my apartment, which smelled of stale coffee and memories. It wasn't the smell of David and Sarah's house, which smelled of expensive cleaning products and secrets. It was the smell of people who had so much money they could buy discretion, and I needed discretion like I needed air. Margaret Carter said to the impeccably dressed receptionist behind the marble counter, "There's a reservation. Pet-friendly room. Top floor," she typed. She looked at Rex, who was sitting next to me, as still as a guard statue. "Mrs. Carter, I see we have a special request for you. From Mr. Pierce." He left a key. She slid a brown envelope under the counter. I took it. It had no stamp, no address, only my name handwritten on it. I recognized the handwriting. Robert Pierce always wrote as if each letter were a contract. Mr. Pierce also asked us to deliver this. She placed a room key on the counter. Suite 1812. Rivez-vous. And he said to say, "The cage is open, but the door is locked." I smiled. Robert always liked codes. He was the kind of lawyer who held meetings in parking lots and used $100 services to send messages, but he was loyal. And loyalty, I had discovered, was worth more than all the Harvard degrees. Thank you. I took the room key and the envelope. And is there a fruit basket in the room? Of course, Mrs. Carter. Perfect. Please remove the apples. Rex is allergic. She nodded, confused but polite. Rex wasn't allergic to apples, but I needed her out of the room for a specific reason. A reason that had to do with the fruit basket, a knife I had in my wool sweater pocket, and the memory of Walter teaching me that the best place to hide something important is inside something that seems unimportant. The elevator was glass. I hated it. Feeling the floor rise beneath my feet reminded me that I was far from the earth. Far from safety. Far from but première when tu paies. With Rex by my side, the wooden box in my lap, and the web of betrayals I had woven in the Uber still clutched between my fingers. Room 1812 was large. It wasn't a room, it was an apartment. Living room, kitchen, separate bedroom, and a window overlooking the Trinity River, which shone as if it were weeping oil and memories. I closed the door, I locked it, and only then did I allow the air to leave my lungs. Rex, I said, sitting the dog in the leather armchair that looked like it had cost more than my old car. We have work to do. I opened Robert's envelope. Inside, there was no letter. There was a USB drive and a note, short, direct, robotic, as Robert would write when he was angry. Maggie, the documents are on the server. Folder Lioness Heart. Password, 7148WR. Don't call me. Don't text me. Just read. And then burn. RP. I grabbed the USB drive. I looked at Rex. He's always been dramatic. Rex barked. Once. Shortly. As if to say, I don't judge. I just protect. There was a laptop in the room. A silver MacBook. The kind I never knew how to use. But I had learned. Because Walter taught me that a woman who doesn't know how to use technology is a woman who will be left behind. And I wasn't left behind. I was pushed. And pushing has consequences. I turned on the MacBook, inserted the USB drive, opened the folder. Lioness Heart. Walter called me a lioness. Because I had given birth on the floor of a cabin in the Amazon rainforest, without a doctor, without anesthesia, just with a hunting knife and a nightgown. He said I had roared. I said I had prayed. But the truth is, I had done both. Inside the folder, there were files, many files. Each with a name: David, transfers, Sarah, messages. À part documentation, lens changes, joint account, access. And a final file, action plan, final. I opened the last one first. It was a PDF document. Signed by Robert. Date, October 15th, 2024. Today, Margaret. If you are reading this, it's because they did exactly what we predicted. We, Robert and I.W.E. Walter and I, we, me and myself. The apartment is in their name, but the original title is in your possession attached file. The life insurance policy has been changed, but the original copy with you as the sole beneficiary is in box 714 attached document. The joint account has been emptied, but all transfers went to accounts we tracked attached records. Each word was a stitch in the net. Each stitch was a piece of evidence. And each piece of evidence was one step closer to a turnaround they never saw coming. But there was something else in the action plan, something that made me stop breathing for a full second. The trust clause, Section 8, subsection C, in the event of proven physical abandonment. The trustee is entitled to immediate liquidation of all assets, double quotes the trust, without the need for judicial consent, is established. as long as the designated animal is monitored. The designated animal is Rex. Chip ID. For our XT1978FL, they had put the chip in their name. But the chip had an ID, and the ID was in the trust. And the trust had a clause. Rex wasn't just my lawyer. He was my legal right. Rex, I said, and my voice trembled with something I hadn't felt in years. Power. We're going to win. The next file I opened was called Livestream. It was a link. A link to a private streaming platform. I clicked. The screen showed a room. A room première knew the living room happened. They were there. He, on the sofa, with his laptop open. She, standing, with a glass of wine, talking on the phone. The audio was on. I could hear them. Clear as if I were in the same room. No, Mom, it's okay. Sarah was talking to her mother. She's with David. We just need some time. She's been very difficult. The dog will take care of her. The dog, Rex. The dog that now sat beside me, in room 1812. Listening to every word, barking softly, as if understanding every syllable of betrayal. David. Sarah turned to my son. Did you talk to the lawyer about the insurance? I did. He didn't look at her. He was looking at the laptop. He said the mother needs to be declared incompetent. But it will take time. We need a medical report. She has Alzheimer's. That's easy. She doesn't have Alzheimer's. She has diabetes, and she's fat. It's not the same thing. For the judge, it is. Sarah smiled. A smile I saw in the laptop mirror. Cold, calculating, made of money and will. We have Dr. Henderson. He already said he's going to sign. Dr. Henderson, the doctor I thought was my friend. The doctor who saw me every 3 months. The doctor who gave me prescriptions and hugged me and called me Dear Maggie. He was in on the scheme. They all were. Rex, I whispered, and the dog lifted his head. We have an infestation problem. And the only way to get rid of an infestation is to fumigate. I closed the laptop. I put the USB drive in my blouse pocket. And then I did something I hadn't done in 40 years. I picked up the room phone. I called the front desk. Room service, please. I'd like to order a bottle of Dom Perignon, and 2 glasses, and a cheese platter, and a good quality knife to cut the cheese. The girl at the reception desk, probably the same one who had given me the envelope, looked confused. Mrs. Carter, a knife to cut the cheese, I repeated. The cheese I brought. I hadn't brought cheese. But I had brought something that needed to be cut, something that had been stuck in my throat for 45 years. A betrayal, a son, a daughter-in-law, a plan they thought they had won. But the plan had been mine from the beginning. Walter had taught me one thing before. He lost his memory. Maggie, the best trap is the one the prey builds for itself. They had built the trap. I had only put the jaw on it. Rex, I said, while waiting for room service, are you ready to be a hero? He barked. Once. Short, as always. Room service arrived. With the bottle, with the glasses, with the cheeses, and with the knife. A serrated knife. Sharp. Perfect. I took the knife. I looked at my reflection in the blade. My face was old, tired, but the eyes were the same ones Walter had seen when we met. A Tutsi dictum. I'm a survivor. Cold drop, yes. He answered on the first call. It's time, I said. Are you sure? He asked. Once you start, there's no going back. I don't want to go back, I replied. I want justice. And then, I want peace. And the ring. Oh, miand. And the dog. On my hand too. Robert laughed. A dry laugh. A lawyer's laugh. They never knew, did they? Never. I laughed too. But they will. Tomorrow, you'll know. I hung up. I picked up the knife. And I started cutting the cheese I didn't have. But each cut was symbolic. Each cut was a plan. Each cut was a reminder that I had been cut so many times that I knew exactly where to make the cuts in others. Rex, I said, and my voice was now flat, cold, calculating. Tomorrow, we're going home. And when we get there, we're going to find a surprise. He tilted his head. The surprise, I continued, is that home is no longer theirs, it's ours. And if they want to come in, they'll have to go through us. And going through us meant going through a trust they didn't know existed, through a clause they didn't know they had signed, through a dog they thought was simple, but was complex. Like me. I cut the last piece of invisible cheese. And then I picked up the phone again. I called a number I had memorized 45 years ago. Dr. Henderson, I said when he answered, "This is Maggie Carter. I need to schedule an appointment for tomorrow." Regarding my diagnosis, Alzheimer's disease, he hesitated. "Mrs. Carter, I don't have availability, double quotes you do," I interrupted. "Because I pay your salary. And if you don't answer me, I'll have to use the money I pay you to hire a lawyer. And nobody wants that." He swallowed hard. "What time, Mrs. Carter?" 11 a.m. And bring the report, the original report. Not the fake one Sarah asked for. Silence. Then, "How did you know?" "I'm old, Dr. Henderson. I'm not stupid." I hung up. I looked at Rex. "Tomorrow, we're going to the doctor. Then, we're going to the apartment. Then, we're going to court. Then, weaving," he barked, "on titim the boslang," like a lioness's roar, because he knew. Elwek knew. Walter had told me, on the last day, he still knew my name. Maggie. Lions don't roar to show strength. They roar to warn that the hunt has begun, and the hunt had begun. The hunt for the apartment, for the money, for the dignity, for the life I had built with needle and thread and cake recipes they never knew were worth millions. "Rex," I whispered, and this time my voice trembled not with fear, but with pleasure. "Tomorrow, they'll find out they abandoned the wrong thing." He leaned against my leg. And so, with the family ring on my finger, the web of betrayals in my hands, and a dog weighing 40 kilos of loyalty by my side, I closed my eyes and let the plan unfold in my dreams as it had already unfolded in my life, perfectly, silently, and mercilessly. Dr. Henderson arrived at his office at 10:45 a.m. I was already there, sitting in the waiting room, with Rex beside me, gazing at the landscape of glass, buildings reflecting a seemingly unforgiving sun. The office was new, elegant. It had plants that didn't need water, plastic plants, for a plastic doctor. "Mrs. Carter," he said, smiling with that expression dentists use when they're about to tell you, you need a root canal. What a pleasant surprise. "It's not pleasant, Dr. Henderson." "And it's not a surprise." I didn't stand up. Rex didn't stand up. We were both rehearsed for this. "You have something for me. A report. The real report." He stopped. The door, still open. The nurse still behind him. "Mrs. Carter, I don't know what you're talking about. I know Sarah came here. I know she asked you to sign a report, saying I had incompetent Alzheimer's. I know she offered money. And I know you accepted." The nurse left. Quickly, smartly. She knew bad news shouldn't be witnessed. "I didn't accept anything," he said, but his voice was trembling, like a man who knows he's been caught. "No." I pulled a copy of the receipt I'd found in Sarah's trash can from my wool sweater pocket, a deposit slip. $15,000. Date, October 10th. From the previous day, the day they dropped me off at Walmart. So this isn't yours. He stared at the receipt. The color drained from his face. How did you? I have a dog, Dr. Henderson. Dogs sniff trash cans. Rex sniffed. Rex fondit. And now Rex and I are here to bring justice. I'm going to lose my license. You're going to lose more. I showed him the second page of Robert's action plan. You're going to lose your freedom. Because falsely documenting a patient's mental condition for financial gain is a federal crime. And the FBI, I pointed to the window where an unmarked black car was parked, is waiting. He looked out the window and saw what I wanted him to see. Vance, Agent Vance, with a badge that gleamed like a promise of imprisonment. I have children, he whispered. Me too. I stood up, painfully, but I stood up. The difference is that mine abandoned me. And I survived. Yours will grow up without a father. And they will survive too. The world is that harsh. I left. Rex Bivanswentin. And as the door closed, I heard the distant sound of a future being destroyed, not by me, by his choice. By their choice. The next step was the apartment. Our apartment, the one I had paid for. The one they had stolen. I arrived there at 1 p.m. The door was locked. New lock. They had changed it on Tuesday. While I was at the doctor's, the locks were digital, modern, expensive, and useless against a master key I'd kept since 1995. I inserted the key. The door opened. The apartment smelled of them, of Sarah's expensive perfume, of David's cheap sweat, of the delivery food they ate on the dining table I'd bought at an antique shop in 1982. Rex, I said, releasing Inish home and went on Sidsa slowly, with the returning to his kingdom. Première followed. With the dignity of a queen who had been exiled and was now returning to reclaim her throne, I went to my room. My room, the room that had been mine and Walter's for 30 years. The bed was there. The bedside table was there. In the bedside table drawer, there was a box. A box I had placed there in 1995, when Walter first forgot my name. The box was locked with a combination padlock. The combination was REX. It seemed obvious. That's why they never tried. They thought my love for Rex was simple. It was complex. Inside the box were manila envelopes, 6 of them, each with a name. David, lies. Sarah, theft. Apartment, fraud. Insurance, conspiracy. Doctor, bribery. Plan, final. I opened the last one, the final plan. It was a letter from Walter, written in 1995. In his handwriting, before the disease destroyed his hand. Maggie, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. And if you're reading this, David has done what I always feared he would do. He has become the man I escaped being. A man who sells his soul for money. A man who sells his mother for comfort. But you, Maggie, you are not just my wife. You are what I never was, courageous. I left you not money. I left you a weapon. A weapon that doesn't kill. A weapon that protects. The weapon is clause 8C of the trust. Use it, and when you use it, remember that I didn't give it to you to destroy them. I gave it to you to free them, from us. From everything that family can do when family forgets what it means to be family. Use the money, not for revenge, but to free yourself. And then, go where no one can find you. And live, because living is the only revenge that truly matters. P.S. Rex knows the path. He always knew. I closed the letter. Premier puis taoué. And then I did something I hadn't done in 10 years. I cried, not from sadness, from relief. Because Walter, even dead, even forgotten, had still helped me. He had still given me the tool I needed. The gun. I picked up the plan, final envelope. Inside, there was a document, a legal document, prepared by Robert, signed by me in 1995, with witnesses. Vita notarius evlifer. It was a declaration of voluntary incompetence, but not of my incompetence. Of David and Sarah's incompetence. A clause I had included in the trust that said that, if proven that they were morally incompetent to manage family assets, control of the trust would automatically revert to me, without the need for a judge, and the preux en every fil. In every lie they had told and I had recorded, I called Robert. "It's time. Are you sure?" he asked. "I am," I replied. "Release them." He hung up. And I knew that in various places in Fort Worth, in various law offices, in various banks, in various government agencies, documents were being sent, emails were being sent, accounts were being frozen, bonds were being reversed. And all because a 78-year-old woman had been abandoned in a Walmart with a dog. I left the apartment. I took nothing, just Rex, just the wooden box. Juste un ring. Just the web of betrayals I had woven, and would now use to enforce their plans. Aid's Uber was still waiting. "Where to, my queen?" he asked. "To the airport," I replied. "I need to go somewhere where no one can find me." "And where would that be?" "Lisbon," I said. And it was true. Walter had family there. Family who didn't know about us. Family who had money. Family who, thanks to the ring and the truss, and Rex would know about me now, the Uber moved. I looked out the window. I saw the apartment that had been mine for 30 years disappear in the rearview mirror. I saw David and Sarah, probably still on the couch, unaware that their world had just crumbled. I saw Rex looking back, like someone closing a door. "Rex," I said, and for the first time in years my voice was light. "Free, thank you," he barked. "Team was genu, et alouek nous." Walter had told me, on the last day he knew who he was. "Maggie, when you're free, go where the wind blows. And let the wind carry their names until they become just an echo." The echo was about to arrive. And I would be the wind.